Mr. Hilsinger,
Here.
Mr. Taylor,
Here.
Mr. Sneed,
Here.
Mr. Cunningham,
Here.
Mr. Elliott,
Here.
Mr. Ballard.
Here. Okay, that's 6. We'll go to meeting summaries. We have need a motion for minutes from February 14th.
So moved.
I second. I second it, Wayne.
Okay, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 6-0. We have no status sheet, no committee reports. And we'll go to old business first. First item, PC 36-21 Moto Inc.
Good afternoon. As you recall, PC 36-21 is a request for a change in zoning from M1, FPM1, and FPM3 to M3 and FPM3 for a 2.94 acre tract of land on the southeast quadrant of Interstate 255 and Koch Road. As you recall, this site is in South County, just west of the Jefferson Barracks Bridge to Illinois. And you will also recall that the Petition site, which is the hatched area on the aerial, is only a portion of the overall parcel. This is the preliminary site development plan presented at public hearing. The proposed development would utilize the existing curb cut from Koch Road and have a 5,800 square foot convenience store with a drive-through window, 10 automobile gas pumps, and an automated tunnel car wash. The plan also shows a pole sign in the northwest corner of the site facing I-255 and a monument sign near the entrance on Koch Road. The 6th County Council District Community Area Study was undertaken to provide planning guidance for South County with the goal of developing a plan for the area's future, which included redeveloping vacant or underutilized industrial and commercial sites. The Petition site is part of Site 10, Koch Hospital, which includes 89.5 acres located south of I-255 at Koch Road, overlooking the Mississippi River. Recommendations for the site include optimizing the potential for recreational, institutional, and multifamily residential uses. The Petition site is also part of Sub-Area 5 south of Jefferson Barracks Bridge, and the recommended uses for Sub-Area 5 include promoting port and river access and active or passive recreational uses that take advantage of the topography and river overlook location. For your reference, here is the map for Site 10, Koch Hospital, and the map for Sub-Area 5 south of Jefferson Barracks Bridge. The preliminary site development plan shows a pole sign at the northwest corner of the site, but does not indicate the height of the proposed sign, and the petitioner did not note it at public hearing either. On the plan, the pole is at an elevation of 434 feet, and county maps indicate that I-255 is much higher at roughly 470 feet and increases as you move east towards the Jefferson Barracks Bridge. That is a difference of at least 36 feet. Additionally, signs in industrial districts are limited to 50 square feet in area, while signs in the C3 and C4 districts can be up to 100 square feet. As the following exhibit shows, to extend to a height visible from I-255, the sign would extend beyond the permitted maximum height for pole signs in the industrial district of 30 feet. You can see that I've starred the approximate area of the sign coming from Illinois. It would have to be almost as high as the advertising signs to be visible from the highway. The department finds that even a 30-foot pole sign would be out of character and scale with the area and demonstrates the commercial nature of the proposed use. Here we've highlighted some of the issues with the preliminary site development plan. The first is that MoDOT will not permit an entrance opposite the I-255 exit ramp, which would be a little bit north on Coke Road, but the proposed location of the entrance is in the stream buffer setback from Martigny Creek. The zoning ordinance requires a 50-foot no disturb buffer from the top of the bank plus an additional 25-foot setback, and the no disturb buffer precludes grading activity. Additionally, the location of the car wash in the front yard is not permitted per section 1003.165 off-street parking and loading requirements of the zoning ordinance. And lastly, no landscaping is shown on the preliminary site development plan. The department is recommending denial of this petition. Although the M3 Planned Industrial District procedure can permit commercial uses that are specifically related to a particular industrial activity or complex, this request cannot be reasonably tied to any nearby industrial uses. A standalone gas station is typically considered a commercial use when it is designed to attract non-industrial users, such as motorists passing along I-255. Additionally, Coke Road is intended to serve smaller residential, institutional, and quarry-related traffic. The proposed development is a high-traffic generating use for a corridor that is not intended for such volume. The commercial node of activity in this area is further west at Telegraph Road, and the department does not recommend introducing commercial-style uses and activity at this interchange. Additionally, there are the issues with the preliminary site development plan due to the entrance in the stream buffer setback, the car wash in the front yard, the lack of landscaping, and the proposed pole sign. So at this time, I'd like to request a motion for denial.
Okay, we need a motion of some kind. Anyone?
I'll make the motion for denial.
I'm second.
Who's the second?
Bill.
Okay. Discussion.
Yeah. Wayne, this is Keith.
Yeah, Keith.
I'd like to ask you, what do they suggest that we'll ever be able to go into this piece of property right here?
So, Mel, would you, or Abby, would you go to the next slide? I think there should be a slide that actually we want to discuss this. And there's I think there's a lot of feedback in the meeting right now. So if anyone is currently unmuted, please mute yourselves. So this was actually a conversation that the department has had about this site. And I think that not only this petition brings up this question, but so does a very recent petition that was before the commission, which is that CUP up along Bell Fountain Road, where there's been M1 zoning in place since the zoning maps were adopted in 1965. So the staff wants to sort of bring it to the commission's attention that there are ways that the Planning Commission can ultimately study corridors such as Coke Road or Bell Fountain Road, just using those as very specific examples to make determinations whether the underlying zoning is appropriate for the site. You see that there is a procedure. The procedure is permitted in the zoning ordinance, Chapter 1003, the section of the zoning ordinance where that for all changes in zoning can be initiated by either a property owner and can be initiated by the Planning Commission after thorough study. So an example of a time that the commission has recently exercised that power was when the city or when the village of McKinsey disincorporated. So anything comes into the county as an NU zoning designation, but then it is at the commission's discretion to make a recommendation to amend that zoning to the appropriate underlying zoning category. So in this case, it amended it to I can't remember which R district, but to one of the R districts, which made sense for the village of McKinsey. But what has happened is that since 1965, when the zoning maps were adopted, there are portions of the county in which the underlying rationale for why the zoning was put in place, in this case M1, may not be reflective of what the county really wants to see moving forward. So what we would also say is that as we prepare for a comprehensive plan getting started this year, this is one of the issues that the planning department will want to work with the commission on to do some of these studies and to make recommendations for how to start tackling some of these areas of the county where the zoning maps no longer match what desired development is, which is a long-term decision and requires a lot of input from property owners, from residents, from the commission, and from a whole host of stakeholders. So there is a process and there is a procedure for which future plans can be sort of elaborated for whole corridors.
So the question's still out there. Where would we like to direct this type of property that's next to a quarry? And when the wind blows north, if you tried to put a hotel up there or anything, that a park, it's dust. And I know that because if you go behind the quarry, west of the quarry, there's a McBride development there. And then any given day you go down there, if the wind's blowing that direction, if somebody has a dark colored roof, the roof is white from all the lime dust floating all over the place. It's not the best of areas to put anything.
So the question is, procedurally, I can't tell you what should go there. This petition is a reaction to a specific request. So I think the department has outlined fairly clearly why, and would be happy to discuss further why we find that this request is unsuitable for the site. But the bigger question of what should go here, I think, is a robust policy question for this commission to sort of to go through some planning processes and look at these kinds of corridors to answer those questions, because you can't answer that question directly without input from residents, property owners. It's not something to be undertaken lightly to come up with a plan.
Well, I think the question though is, under the current zoning, the owner wants to sell the property. What can he put on there right now without coming to us?
So all M1 permitted uses are permitted, which the M1 philosophically is intended for light industrial, light manufacturing, light warehousing of materials, things of that nature.
Hey, Wayne,
Construction, lots, equipment.
I apologize, Mr. Hilsinger. I missed the beginning of that.
Can he sell it to a contractor who wants to use it as a construction yard under the M1?
Under the M1, if there any M1 permitted use is permitted by right, the site has those rights.
Okay. Salvage yard?
No, salvage yards are not, without looking at but salvage yards I think require a conditional use permit without me going, and I'd have to see a request and sort of go through the zoning ordinance, which I don't have immediately in front of me, but salvage yards are not permitted by right in an M1. Junk yards are not permitted by right. There are requirements, other requirements.
Commissioners, anything else?
Wayne, I did approval of the denial, I believe. Is that right?
Yes.
I want to withdraw that.
Okay. So we have the first. Do we have a second from anybody to replace Bill? Seeing none.
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Gary. Okay, further discussion, anyone?
Wayne, do you think we gain anything by holding this and maybe get more information? Do we need more information on this?
What-
I personally, I do. I've got questions.
What additional information could the department get for you?
From listening to what I just heard, there's a lot of things that could go in there, and I don't know if we've discussed them all. I was looking at the study that was that they recommended. And they talked about offices and things like that. And I was listening at, a while ago when we were talking about the dust and everything flying from there. And it is a dusty place down there. I've driven in there too, and I got my car all dusted up because I go down to Jefferson Barracks a lot. So just wondering what could we actually put in there that would be suitable and appropriate for the people that live in the neighborhood? I mean,
Well,
are
Bill,
they getting the dirt and dust?
Let me pose this question. Is it our obligation to determine what goes in there, or is it our obligation to go through each initial request and vote it up or down?
well,
I'm glad you asked
right
that.
now, I think
What is our function?
right now we're just voting on whether or not we want to approve or deny the denial of this particular petition.
I may,
We're not necessarily determining what's going to go there right now.
yes, if I may, that is accurate. The action in front of you is the determination of this petition. The question then becomes part of a larger conversation. There will be no ability for the Planning Commission to say, in lieu of this, we want X. The question is more a larger question about the corridor. What should the corridor look like after a planning study is potentially done? And I think that the comprehensive plan that the department has been recently funded to do, and that we are currently working on, what will be the criteria for when we solicit for this plan publicly, will be a discussion about these kinds of very issues. But the question in front of the commission is regarding the specifics of this request today.
Got one more question. On this property before, was it last year or has it been longer than that? It was proposed for a truck stop?
I believe it was 2 years ago, but it's been very recent. It may have been 2020.
Truck stop. And at that time, a whole slew of the neighborhood came down there in opposition, correct?
Without going back to the record, I mean, the commission and the department recommended denial. Without going back to look at the video, I don't remember, but I do remember there was public pushback, yes.
I think Keith,
And
you're
on
right.
this last,
They were
on this
concerned
last
about
go round, did
the
we
women
have
in
the
the
same
night
amount of
down
people
there.
come back out in opposition?
I apologize. I missed some of that through the crosstalk.
Did you have the same amount of residents come back and say they didn't want this gas station convenience store here this last go around?
I don't know whether we haven't looked and tried to compare the number. I suppose, Mel, if you could maybe look at the information report from the previous petition.
Sure.
Try to pull it up on the drive while we're got here. It may take her a second to find that petition. But we did receive, and I believe in your packets, you should have received, there were written comments back regarding this petition.
And additionally, with the second request, there was a town hall prior to the commission's public hearing. There's some citizen concerns as well.
In the actual meeting, there was only one opposition. Is that right, according to your paperwork?
Speaker, I think there was just one speaker in opposition for the January public hearing.
And I've seen no correspondence to the department from anybody concerning this petition.
There were some written comments that those aren't yet reflected on the information report. Those get tallied onto the letter of recommendation, but there were a handful of letters that did come in.
And those letters were sent 2 weeks ago when we sent out the packet. Those letters were included in the PDF, correct, Mel?
Yes, and I want to say I sent them with this agenda packet as well, but I can look back at
So
that.
yeah, look at the PDF for what you sent and make sure that
Okay, but is that the PDF that we all had trouble accessing?
Yeah.
I mean,
I get mine open.
we have a administrative issue that we haven't addressed, and that's getting information to us that we can read, that we can access. You know, maybe our computers aren't as good as your computers, but my discussion with other people, we all had problems. We never could get on and read that information. So maybe we need to start meeting in person so that we can get the information to at least allow the group to come up with some input to these things based on what information you all have.
If I could suggest, if we just take a step back and look at the reason that the planning department is requesting denial, I think they make a pretty good case for denial.
I concur.
If I may, the public comment for the 2020 petition were there was one speaker and 3 in the crowd count in favor, and opposed there were 6 speakers, 15 letters, and 7 in the crowd count.
Well, based on past experience, I don't see that to be that one-sided. And we always say that speakers and crowd count really should not influence good judgment on whether it's a good project or one that we would want to deny. Would you agree? Because we tell people it's not a vote. And there's been times when the crowd has been, I would say, beefed up for one decision or the other. So I would hope that we don't start counting votes by the crowd to determine if it's a good project. And I'm not saying you all are, but that's what this discussion sounds like.
Well,
Okay,
well,
let
Bill,
me-
I do have a question, Mr. Sneed.
Yeah.
Do we typically make decisions based on the public's comments?
Oh, we can certainly take it into our individual consideration. I'm talking about the discussion here is how many people said this or how many people said that. I don't think we've ever used that as a criteria. Does anyone remember that?
I
No,
don't
what
think
I'm
it was
interested in is
necessarily-
the reason the planning department voted for denial. If you could put that list back up there and see if that list makes sense to you gentlemen, the way it made sense to me.
Well, the planning department didn't vote for denial. They're just bringing it as a recommendation. It's up to us to vote for it now.
No, I understand that, but-
If you go ahead and get it approved right now, let's vote for it and see how many people say yes and how many people say no and be done.
Is that the wish? Let's take a roll call.
I'll vote for denial.
Mel, would you go ahead and take the roll call?
Would you say that's a yes then? If to make it real simple, a yes is a for denial?
The motion is to pass the denial.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yes, a yes is for denial.
Yes, for Lou Cunningham.
It's for denial from Gary Elliott.
No,
Yes, Steve. Yes, Steve Lawler.
I believe we haven't heard from Mr. Sneed and Mr. Hilsinger.
Oh, I think because of not knowing, I understand what your recommendations are. I would probably take that for some good reasons. but I don't think I've had enough information to really make a good decision at this stage, so I will abstain.
I will abstain as well.
So, Mel, what's the vote? Mel, are you on?
I've got 3-1-2.
Okay, so the motion fails because the bylaws of the commission require for an affirmative vote of 5 to move a motion when it requires for a recommendation for a change in zoning. So at this point, that you're sort of back to sort of another square of trying to determine what you would like done with this petition.
Well, it sounds like there's more information, I guess, that is needed. I'm not sure what, but
To get additional
Oh.
information, the commission really needs to direct staff as to what further information it would like for staff to produce.
Anyone? I mean, there's a couple items that I'm not buying, and that one is no landscaping being shown on the plan. We dictate in zoning ordinances dictate what the landscaping is going to be. And it's the same issue for the signage. We determine, and zoning ordinances determine the height and size of signs.
The commission does not have the authority to extend a height beyond what is permitted. So the planning commission can't provide a pole height beyond what is required in the zoning ordinance. They could go to.
I get that, Jacob. What I don't get is your recommendation for denial used the size of the sign as one of the reasons.
The rationale for why is not a rationale to deny it. That is a rationale to show that it is a commercial style use in nature. The site is being used as the department finds that this is what is attempted to occur is use the M3 procedure for a use that is not for what when you read the philosophy of the M3 procedure and what it underlines. All commercial uses have to be reasonably tied to an industrial use. That's why it's industrially zoned. There is no reasonable way to tie this to an industrial use. It is clearly and obviously being shown to attempt to get users off of the interstate, which shows it is not really intended as an industrial use. It is intended to be a commercial use. So that is one of our foundational sort of issues with the petition and the request. And so showing that the pole signage is oriented towards the highway is a rationale to show that it is intended to draw people off of the interstate and make it a commercial use. Additionally, the Planning Commission does not have the authority to extend it to a height to make it visible from the road. And that because of the difference, even the Board of Zoning adjustment couldn't grant enough. So we want to make that really clear as to what's going on, because philosophically, the industrial zones are not intended to try to draw people to them for commercial and high intensity uses such as this.
Jacob, this is Bill. What other this is just for information. I'm not suggesting anything. What other petition could be made under a different classification rather than M3?
They could try C8 if they wanted.
So why wouldn't they have done that? If this is clearly not workable because of the classifications, why would they not?
I think that is a question that could be posed to the petitioner, but again, what is at play is what is in front of the commission today.
Yeah,
so
I understand
when they filled out their application, this was what their request was. What I would conjecture, what I would conjecture or say is that at this point, because it's zoned M1 already, there is no commercial zoning at all, period, end stop along that section of Coke Road. So the introduction of commercial zoning also brings with it its own set of questions and concerns. And what I would say is that the department has been consistent with the applicant throughout both petitions, that the department does not find this to be a reasonable use at this site. And they have been told that multiple times. And at this point, I think the department's recommendation stands. Although at this point, it's also the commission has to make a decision and then direct the department if it wishes if it's the goal, if it is the wish of the commission. We will draft your letter of recommendation in whatever way that you find fit. Is kind of where I think we are as a department, and that we can't, without further direction, I'm not sure what else to provide for you unless you ask for it.
But clearly, what Wayne was saying about landscaping and a pole. I mean, if they don't get a pole sign, they don't get a pole sign. I mean, we've made many changes like that over time. Relocation of the entrance. I believe you said Coke Road could not be intersected with that and the exit off of the highway. Those are all design issues that we've dealt with many times, and you just tell them that has to be changed. And if they want to get approval, they change them. So but the one that I guess I'm having more uncertainty about is the M3 planned industrial district. And if that is clearly the case, then obviously we can't approve it. Would you agree with that?
By and large, yes, you have the ability to control a lot of the site design criteria. What I would say about this site specifically is they are going to be heavily constrained on where they can get their entrance. It's going to need to be, they can't put it, design criteria for both, MoDOT and CoDOT are going to say they want entrances opposite of streets. So if streets exist, they're going to want it sort of opposite of another street is a fairly standard design criteria. So they're struggling. This site is going to struggle with exactly where to put the entrance, because they've put it directly across from, I think it's Kinswood Lane, which is a reasonable and rational place to put it based on that design criteria. But it also then conflicts with with some other issues at play. Now, in terms of landscaping, yes, it is the authority of if this ever went to permitting through the permitting review process, it would require a landscaping plan. It would, if the commission did not require heightened landscaping, then it would, have to meet the zoning ordinance, standards. So there will be landscaping at the site. Staff, when it notes that their preliminary plan didn't show it, so they didn't provide the opportunity for the department and the commission to respond to a landscaping sort of proposal. So that's really when we say that we're not intending to say that the commission cannot require landscaping at the site, is that they haven't given us something to react to at the site.
Mm-hmm. Bill, are you finished, Mr. Snead?
Yes, I am.
Bill Ballard, the stream buffer setback, what's the issue with that again?
So the zoning ordinance requires that there be a no disturb area around streams with floodplains. So there has to be, from top of bank, there has to be a no disturb area established. And then off of that no disturb line, there's then a no build line within that area. So you can do some grading and some disturbing in that sort of secondary buffer. So what they're showing is they are showing grading in that no disturb buffer. So that is something that would not be, that is not permitted. So when we react to that, we're reacting to a preliminary site development plan that's in front of us, and noting some of the deficiencies at play for this site.
So they are encroaching on the setback area, is what you're saying?
Yes, Abby, could you go back up to the preliminary site development plan? So what you're seeing here is, so she's marked these lines. So you have a no disturb and you have a no build. So I think that she's marked here. The blue line must be top of bank. With then using the measuring tools to sort of show you where things are, how things are being shown. So they are showing some disturbance in the no disturb area. Now they're not showing anything being built in the no build area, but they are showing some disturbance in the no disturb areas. So what I think staff would, in the hierarchy of our recommendation, what we're doing is we're showing multiple issues at the site. We're not saying that all of these issues are co-equal. I think our largest rationale for making the recommendation for denial is that we don't find that the increased or the addition of a high intensity, high volume producing site, such as a gas station along a road where such uses have not been established in the past and where there has been a precedent for not wanting these types of uses. So the introduction of this becomes something for the commission to determine whether it is appropriate. We find that we don't find that the introduction of a high intensity automobile use at this site is. Additionally, there are site issues on the site plan that we find to be not in the best interest for for site plan review and approval if it ever got to that stage.
Okay, but we're talking about this this encroachment. So the red line that's dipping below that other line there, is that the encroachment you're talking about? Is
So
everything
yes.
equal?
So the blue line, that the
bottom
first red
blue line-
line is the no disturb buffer. So they are showing some disturbance within that area. Then that second line is just to show you what then is the further no build line. Now they are showing they're not showing buildings in the no build area, but they are showing disturbance in the no disturb area. So their grading as shown would require to be redone.
Okay.
If I could add, the reasoning for some of that grading is that this section of the tract is what's currently in the floodplain. And as you can tell from the aerial, and you can even see on this label here that Martigny Creek acts as backwater to the Mississippi River. So any changes to the topography can affect that, that's a whole sort of watershed in that area there.
So you think he would amend his?
I think that's also something that could be revised, but
Yeah, I
like
think
Jacob
so,
said,
too.
that's what's shown here.
Yeah, I think they could probably, do it a little different. Okay, I had another question. Put the other slide back up there, please. The first one.
The recommendation slide.
Yeah, the previous one, yes.
Okay.
Let me see, so a gas station itself is not commercial? Are we saying that too?
No, gas stations are generally they are only permitted in the C, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mel, but they're permitted in the C3. They're not permitted
C3 and the C4, the highway district.
The highway district, right? So otherwise, any commercial use that gets inserted into an M3 has to be reasonably tied to an existing industrial use in the area, because otherwise it was never intended to be a backdoor way for commercial uses to show up in industrial zones.
And what I would like to add on to that is I believe it's fair to say if the, I apologize, Mr. Ballard, please go ahead.
Before you go there, you said it was never intended. So they have to be designed at the same time in order to get that? That's what you're saying? We have to prove them at the same time, the industrial?
I think an example would be if you look at Earth City, it's an industrial district with a range of office and warehouse uses, and there are some gas stations that are located within that district, but those cater to those the users who are there for those other permitted industrial uses, except for maybe the ones closest to the interstate. They probably aren't drawing users, the general traveling public.
I think a bigger question then too is as another example is throwing into a theoretical future or theoretical world would be looking at Baumgartner Road, which has been sort of transitioning to an industrial corridor over a significant period of time. I think that there is a world in which someone could rationally make a proposal that shows that they can attach a sort of a new gas station proposal due to the existing and new growth of industrial uses that we see down there. But I think that this is a site in which you can't reasonably make that argument. But again, this is a recommendation of the department. If it's the commission's will to go a different direction, the department will write your letter of recommendation in whichever way you'd like it done.
Well, Jacob, you said something this is Keith. People that would be using the convenience store, you'd be surprised how many people will get off that highway that will be coming from maybe down in Jefferson County, loop around, that work at the quarry, people that work over in Illinois that work at the quarry, and they're going to run right into that convenience store in the morning. They're going to buy their groceries for the day. If you don't know this or not, there used to be the Coke Hospital was there. Many of those guys that worked down at that quarry, they ate at the Coke Hospital cafeteria. And I'm sure you've got people over at the barracks. There's other places, but they'll run through there. The folks that work over at the cemetery, they'll be utilizing that convenience store as well. So, not to mention the underground that's down in the quarry down there. That's office space down there. I mean, there's a lot of, use that people will be using that other than just people getting off the highway. Especially if the sign can only go up so high, it can only go up so high. So it's the owners of that gas station will have to figure that out if it ever gets approved, if that happens.
The only other thing I wanted to add, it was asked, if this was a request for a C8, that would still, to the department, introduce not only a commercial use, but then commercial zoning along this corridor, and that would also set a precedent in that way, if that was the request.
So in other words, would that kind of help the case of the gas station?
If they had asked for C8, I think the general recommendation would be similar in that it's the commercial uses that aren't appropriate along this corridor. We wouldn't have this concern about, the use of the M3 district procedure. Instead, it would be that the C8 would be inappropriate in that it's introducing commercial zoning at all.
Almost sounds like this guy's digging where there's no potatoes.
That's right.
I mean, everybody wants to cut the owner a break, but maybe he'd be better off just to sell it to the quarry. I'm guessing the quarry's not interested. Maybe not. They're under new ownership. Right.
So, you guys ready to vote yet?
Well, right now we've got the motion was not passed, so essentially this is on hold. Unless somebody's wanting to change two people want to change their votes. Anyone? Seeing none, the motion fails, and those who voted opposite, let the department know your concerns and what information you need, either from them or from the petitioner. And we'll see this again.
So, Mr. Hislinger, I just like to sort of, I just want to procedurally understand just sort of what it is that the department can produce for the commission. So at this point, the commission has no additional requests for new information from the department at this point.
No, but we're asking that the abstentions and the no votes communicate with the department in the next few days concerns and what information they want. So it doesn't have to be done right now.
This is Bill again. I think we'd all like to understand the critical issue that the planning staff has presented. And it seems to me that critical issue is that they're looking to put this in an M3 industrial district, and the planning staff feels it does not relate to anything industrial in the area. And I think Keith has certainly raised some of issue to that, in that one could reasonably think that it could be related. Can the staff look at whether or not that's a mitigating factor that needs to be looked at by the staff? I think that's what I got out of that discussion. Does anyone else get anything out of that discussion?
Anyone?
Keith? I don't think Keith's, you're muted, I think.
There we go.
I'm sorry.
Jacob, I'm probably reaching out to you tomorrow then.
Okay.
um,
Right.
And go through some of these things.
I think
I'm looking at a piece of property. It's been sitting there for a very long time. Nothing's happened. I don't look for anything else to happen other than the weeds keep growing up, and who knows, there's a homeless encampment back there, which at least if somebody had something on that property, somebody could be taking care of that as well. Homeless people need a place to live, but I don't think it's right there next to the highway where something bad could happen. And nobody's looking at them. They reach out on the other side, they fall off the bluff, go down in the quarry, and get run over by the trains down there. It's not good.
I think as far as the other items, I think those things can be resolved as we have typically resolved them in the past. The height of the post, like, again, Keith and Wayne both said they'd have to comply or they don't get a sign or whatever. It's I would probably have the information once we answer Keith's question, because that's the only really strong reason not to approve this, I would think. The rest of the items, I think, could be worked out between staff and the petitioner.
Okay, anyone else have anything to add? If not, let's move on. And we'll go to PC, old business letters for approval, PC 31-21, St. Louis County Planning Commission.
So all of these three letters, PC 31, PC 32, and of 21, and then PC 01 and 02 22 are consistent with the commission's recommendations from the February 14th executive
We
meeting.
can do those as a single motion then. Anyone? We need a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept these.
Do we have a second? Who's the second?
Bill Snead.
Bill Snead, okay. Discussion, anyone? Seeing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next item, correspondence. First item is PC 46-75, annual report for Fred Weber Quarry.
So this is the 2021 annual report for the Fred Weber conditional use permits. There are 3 conditional use permits that have the requirement that an annual report be submitted. The annual report shows that they are still doing some mining activities and anticipate that will go on for the next couple decades. So the commission action would be to receive and file this report.
Okay, we need a motion.
So moved.
We have a second.
Bill Ballard, second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Next item is PC 01-21, Jared Gallagher, requesting amendments. Do we have anyone? Staff?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the PowerPoint to advance.
Sorry,
No, that's all right.
something froze.
That's all right. So yeah, as you'll recall, PC 01-21, Jared Gallagher, was a request for a C8 planned commercial district procedure to permit a contractor's yard. They're requesting an amendment to the C8 ordinance. There was an error in the building size requirement that got written into the ordinance. The petitioner's intent was to use the existing building. The ordinance was written to allow for a maximum building size of 2,000 square feet. The existing building is in fact 3,200 square feet. So this amendment would bring the ordinance into alignment with the commission's recommendation. So I'd ask for a motion for approval at this time.
Make a motion for approval.
We have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Then we've got PC 30-19, our Redeemer Cemetery.
So this is a request for an extension of time to submit the site development plan for this conditional use permit. For review, our Redeemer Cemetery's petition was to bring the existing cemetery into compliance with the zoning ordinance, which requires a conditional use permit in the NU. The reason for their request was to build a new administration building. They did get started on that process, but then ran into some issues with their consultants as well as pandemic related issues, but are ready to resubmit it. So the department's recommending approval of the extension, which will give them until October of this year.
Okay, we need a motion.
This
I'll
need
a motion,
Second,
approval.
I second Bill. Gallagher.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. We have any site plans?
We have no site plans tonight.
Okay. Good of the order.
So I believe the commission has received a set of your current bylaws, and the staff did draft up just started a draft for your all's consumption to possibly consider for new bylaws. We sent those to you guys last week. So no action today, other than just how we, staff to sort of facilitate that process. What can we do to sort of help facilitate that? We had thought perhaps having a committee of the whole meeting 2 weeks from now to have a conversation, or if it is the will of the commission to appoint a special committee to discuss that, that could be something that you guys could decide to do today as well.
Mr. Trimble, I have a question.
Yes.
Did you make any changes on here, revisions, or is this just like it was? If I compare my old one with this one, would they read the same?
No, well, yes and no. So we did make some minor language changes.
Come on now. Yes or no?
Well, we did make some minor language changes, but we did add some sections. So you'll see at the front, we added a little bit more sort of just sort of noting where the commission is where how it was created in the charter and in ordinance. So we just put that in there. Additionally, we added a couple sections for you all to consider. One section was about conflicts of interest. So when we went and looked at other planning commissions around the country's bylaws online, we saw pretty regularly that there was a segment about conflicts of interest. So we did propose language in there regarding that. Additionally, we did propose language in there about continuing education for commissioners.
Can I ask you about the 4 hours training there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or any, and that's at the commission's, that's at the commission's discretion. That was just us throwing it in.
Good idea. I'm not criticizing. I thought it was pretty good. I just didn't want to go back and read the old one and lay them side by side, but I guess I need to do that.
Additionally, there were some other minor changes. We sort of changed the language around when meetings would be because it had previously been very prescriptive. You shall have a meeting on the first Monday at this time in this location. So we just said there shall be a meeting, at least one meeting of the executive meeting and one Planning Commission public hearing meeting once per month on Mondays at times that are advantageous and maximally, lead to maximal public participation, to give a little bit more sort of language, sort of flexibility in there for determining times and places. We also put in there, I think it's in the responsibilities of the secretary. We amended that ever so slightly because previously it had been information and correspondence that shall be delivered via USPS, United States Postal Service. We changed it to electronic mail to be more reflective of how things sort of get out nowadays. But these are, these are considerations for, for you all to discuss. And when we created this draft just to help be a template for what you could, what we would recommend some changes could be, and we would be happy to produce more changes for you as you deem fit.
I have a question for all the commissioners. How many commissioners have taken any type of training on the continuing education? How many have even trained any kind of training to be a commissioner?
26 years, we have not had any training at all. I don't know about Wayne, but I have not. 26 years I've been on it.
No, it's never been offered.
Yeah, we would take it. I would take it. I'm all for it.
If I may jump in, because staff is like we've kicked around in the planning department about having sort of quarterly committee of the whole meetings where we take a topic that's sort of interest, either A, that the commissioners in general have interest in, or B, that we have, seeing bubbling up. It can either be a very procedural issue. This is, how and why zoning and how certain specific things operate, or it can be topical. We're seeing X, Y, and Z in the planning world. These are the kinds of issues that we're seeing out there. It can run the gamut.
Yeah.
Okay, but does that count for additional training?
Yes, so we wrote and again, this is completely just us sort of, I guess, starting this conversation about ways that we can be more, that we can provide more value to you all as commissioners. So one of the ways that we could do that is do more education that's not just us coming to you talking about petitions, but is coming to you and talking to you about issues and things that we're seeing. Additionally, there are some really good programs. I know Commissioner Cunningham hasn't chimed in yet, but I know that he has done some stuff at UMSL because UMSL provides a certificate in planning and zoning every year. There is some cost to it, and it would be such a thing too that right now the department, when our 2022 allocation, we did not request any any sort of educational things in our budget. But I've also thought about if this was something that the commission that could find helpful, finding ways that perhaps we could budget for this at some point in the future in the department's budget to sort of help defray some of that. I can't promise that. I'm just sort of spitballing and brainstorming through this. But we want to try to find both free options and then other options that are maybe even more comprehensive, because that planning and zoning certificate program at UMSL is pretty good, and it's designed for people who are planning commissioners or people who don't have planning backgrounds that are just sort of interested in planning, that can do a crash course in the sort of whole planning profession.
Jacob, this is Bill. Can we set a time when we would have a meeting of the whole?
Yeah, I think that was what we were, letting you, direct us when you wanted to do this. It could either be you want to have a committee of the whole prior to your next meeting, you meet in 2 weeks, or if you want to wait a month to have more time to discuss it, whether you guys want to create a special committee and refer it to a special committee and have but I think that's at your all's discretion of how you want to move that process.
I would like to see everyone participate rather than doing a committee of 2 or 3 people. And maybe rather than doing it at the beginning of a meeting, we do it as a separate meeting.
Right.
And so we're focused on just one item and not trying to rush through it.
Mhm. So we would think it would probably be a meeting of the committee of the whole. And then what would happen is it would be its own standalone meeting for just your committee of the whole to discuss this one issue with an outcome at that, which would essentially be a report of the committee of the whole to yourselves to then go into an executive meeting either immediately following or at a later date to then accept the report of your committee of the whole and adopt your bylaws. So it could either be done in the same night or it could be done over multiple meetings, depending on whether there are the degree of changes that the commission wants to see.
Right. Well, one of the I think that's a great approach. One of the things I would ask, if it's not too much of a problem, is if you could. You talked about changes that you've made and additions and things like that. Would there be a way of just highlighting?
We could provide a highlighted, I could either A, like show highlighting on the actual document, but B,
So we
also
really
produce
know
a
what we're
memo.
changing and what we're not changing.
Yeah, and we can also put a narrative memo with that for your consumption.
Just for the record, I'd like to add that the program at UMSL, although it was very informational, there was a lot of information that went quickly. I'll say that. So I think something more. I think we would all definitely. I would definitely benefit from going through something again.
Okay, thanks, Will. Okay, anyone else?
And I'm sure, Mr. Trimble, that you guys are looking at other states and counties and what they're doing. And I know I was in Massachusetts about 6, 7 years ago. I saw some things there that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
But and some of that would probably be helpful too. I mean, we could see the new thing on the horizon, you know?
Mm-hmm. And that's, and that's something that I think this department wants to engage with you all more, is giving you all more just that information that's not attached to petitions, just so that you have just more background on a regular basis of what's going on. And then for us to also react to what you all are saying is saying, hey, staff, we want to know more about X, Y, or Z topic, at our next regularly scheduled sort of committee of the whole educational opportunity, whatever. We'd like to cover this topic, and we would basically create a small presentation and have a discussion about whatever it is that topic is. So, is what we're sort of imagining.
Yeah, I think that information is out there. I know when I did the Charter Commission, that we did extensive, or the staff really did extensive research on what was going on around the country and brought that back. So that's something we could be doing here.
So there's no, oh, I apologize. Go ahead.
No. Can we recommend a date? So someone has a date we could kind of, our next meeting is 2 weeks from now, right?
That's correct. There's a meeting on March 14th.
Right. So what's the suggestion of the group as to when we would have this meeting of the whole?
And where?
You want to do it by Zoom, or you want to try meeting in person?
Is that question for everyone, or?
Yeah. Anyone wants to jump?
I prefer doing it by Zoom
Okay,
By Zoom.
Yeah,
that's
Zoom is
fine. That's fine.
or WebEx or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, Zooms are easy. The ride home is short.
So if it's the will of the commission, we can make sure that the meeting on the 14th, that day that we have ample time and that we schedule it in such a way that you have a standalone meeting to discuss your bylaws that are separate from your other actions from that evening. That evening will be also an evening. We do have a public hearing on the 14th, and that is the public hearing in which we will be having, and Mel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe March 14th is when there's going to be 2 petitions along Butler Hill Road near 55, which is the QT request there at Lee May Ferry and Butler Hill, and then just a little bit between Lee May Ferry and Butler Hill, a request for a change in zoning to a C8 right there along the road for a multi-use retail strip center. So you will have two petitions really next to each other on that evening.
Do we need to have it a different night then?
I think that we have what we have right now is that we have your public hearings at 7. Mel, are we thinking the executive meetings at 6? I don't
think so.
I think we have the executive meeting at 6 because I don't think there's a whole, hopefully the petitions or the actions that night, although there will be information reports that night for to discuss.
Let's do a separate night on it, Jacob.
Okay, and it can be, and for something like this, it can be any night of the weeks, which I know the commission has historically almost done every meeting on Mondays. But if the commission would like to meet on another day for something like this, that would be completely appropriate.
Why don't you pick it and let us know?
Okay, if we can do that.
Can we do it on the 7th by chance?
Next Monday?
Next Monday? Does everyone feel, if the commission feels comfortable doing it a week from now, we can get it on the 7th?
Well, I'll be out of town for the whole week.
Okay.
Or if the commission wanted to wait until the 21st, excuse me, the 21st.
Let's do it the 21st.
Okay.
That gives everyone time to read the old bylaws and the new bylaws.
And we can create that summary of the changes prior to then too, and get that around prior to that discussion.
That would really help. Thank you, Mel.
Thank
Could
you.
you do me a favor and mail me a copy of it? Regular mail. Highlighted already.
Paper, man. I'm going through some paper here. Whew.
Well, it's easier doing that than it is pulling it up on a computer and then still staying in the Zoom meeting.
I don't mind the pulling up, but just run paper. I mean, they generate a lot of paper, and it's a lot of work. I'm sure for Mel or whomever is doing this, I'd take my hat off to you. I wouldn't want to do it.
Well, I'm a cheapskate. My printer is the cheap one, and when I start printing more documents, and I'm on several other committees, so
I just make it
I usually ask them to print
it.
Okay, anything else?
So another item for the good of the order is, as we are, so behind the scenes, or not even really behind the scenes, staff is preparing for to submit an RFP out for a comprehensive plan. So we're sort of preparing and getting ready for that, and doing having discussions internally with different individuals as we prepare for that process. So I've brought it up before, but the commission has a standing committee for comprehensive planning, and so every committee is typically made up. Your bylaws were written and are still recommended with having three commissioners at least on a committee. So I wanted to sort of put that back out there again and see if there was any discussion, because it can be such a thing that if it's the will of the commission, we can make this and keep this as a committee at the committee of the whole level where all of these discussions happen, or if you want to delegate certain responsibilities to those to a certain number of commission members that really want to dive deep into the comp plan process. But that's going to start taking up more and more conversation within the next few months. And additionally, whoever is designated, we would be working with to both before we finish the public solicitation, we want the commissioners to take a look at it, to sort of any feedback on that, and keep commissioners keeping abreast to the entire process. Because ultimately, the the comprehensive plan is ultimately a document that emanates out of the commission. So it is your recommendation and before it goes on to the council. So we need, to be fully working with you all to make sure that the plan looks the way that the commission would like for it to look.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else? You know,
No.
when you-
Yep. I
Go
don't think
ahead.
there's anything. I don't think that there's anything else from our end. So.
All right. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We
Second,
have a second
second.
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0, and we're adjourned till March 14th.
Yes, that's correct.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you,
Seven.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Aye.
Have a good one.